Welcome back to 340 Paddler, and today, by request, we're going to discuss storms and what to do when they pop up during the 340. They almost always do. And oftentimes, people will bail out, get onto the shore, etc. We're going to deal with other issues, what to do if you're stuck out there. But first and foremost, get off the river. If there's lightning, you do not want to be on the river under any circumstances. It is not safe. Back when I was in college, I was trying to take pictures of lightning storms for a newspaper. I was also a weather observer at the time. I got too close to a metal fence about 20 feet away that got struck. Thankfully, it just knocked me down. But lightning is dangerous, as we're going to see. Now, for those of you not from Missouri, including myself, Missouri storms are something well beyond anything you've seen. Myself being from Wisconsin, the first time I saw a storm in Missouri, I thought the world was coming to an end. And the reason is there's a lot of geography and everything else that goes into it, but Missouri gets really, really nasty weather. A thunderstorm down there is going to be much worse than you see elsewhere. Radar is going to be your friend. It is the best way to know where you are in relation to the storm and the movement that the storm is making. And the best way to do this, or at least my favorite app for it, is called Radar Now. And it's a brilliant app. It will find your location and it will tell you where you are in relation to the storm, etc. Great idea, something to use. The problem I have with weather radios and that sort of thing is frequently you or your ground crew don't actually know what county you're in or where exactly you are, especially in some of the more rural parts of Missouri, which is, well, really most of it. Now, if there is a storm at the start will be delayed. This happened in 2009. I believe there was a 90-minute delay. So the start would be delayed, but the start would happen. It would just push down the line. Checkpoint times would be adjusted and then brought back to normal by the time we get to the end of the race. So it wouldn't be a hardship or a big problem for the vast majority of people. Wind. There are two issues with storms that I'm going to address: wind and lightning. Wind can be particularly bad, especially if you happen to be at the Epic Shootout this year. Back in April, they had very, very high winds. People had damaged boats and everything else. And the problem was not that they had a headwind, but that they had a crosswind that would blow them into wing dikes, into different features, and that becomes very, very dangerous. If that happens, you want to stay on the off-channel side and shelter from the wind. Now, a headwind can be really tricky. It's mostly psychological, though. From a kayaker's perspective, a headwind isn't that bad. It's not going to reduce the stability of your boat. Not the same way a crosswind would. But if you get into a headwind where you're starting to drop below even current speed, that sort of thing, you might want to get off. On the Missouri, generally if you're in a headwind, you'll only be in it for maybe a half a mile or a mile, then you'll turn and you'll be out of it again. And if it's really getting to you, look at your GPS. Frequently, what feels like a horrible headwind is really only slowing you down a few tenths of a mile an hour. Now the big one, lightning. Now there's some safety tips. This is coming from the San Diego Kayak Club, who have a lot of issues with lightning. And if you're on the water, you want to, first of all, get off the water. If that's not going to be a possibility, set down your paddle, minimize your contact with the boat, cover your ears, and basically just kind of keep an eye open for the first opportunity you have to get off the water. Personally, if there's lightning that I can see, I'm going to get off the water. Unless I see something that tells me that it's parallel and it's 40 miles away. But if it's within 10 miles, you're in danger. And something to remember, those wonderful paddles that we have are wonderful conductors. You wouldn't run around in a thunderstorm at home waving around a 7-foot metal or carbon fiber pole. And by the way, the fishing pole, or what used to be a fishing pole there, that's the result of a lightning strike. That's what lightning does to carbon fiber, because let me remind you, carbon fiber is an amazing conductor. So if you manage to get off the water, which I highly recommend, do not stand directly under a tree. Try to stay about 30 feet away from a tree, but you don't want to be the highest thing. I know it gets confusing. And this is the appropriate position to try and survive a lightning strike. If at all possible, you want to stand on something that's non-conductive. Your seat pad would be good. But ultimately, get off the water. Do not risk it. We do not want to have problems with someone getting killed. Also, the safety boats will not be available during the storm, because while you're trying to shelter, they are too. They won't be able to come out until the storm passes. So if you make the choice to push on past a checkpoint knowing you're running into a storm, be aware of the fact that the safety boats won't be available until after the storm passes. If you follow the rules, if you follow sort of common sense and get off the water when you see a storm coming, everything will be good. This is Waverly in 2016. It was busy, but guess what? All of those people were safe. There are always stories about storms, and some of them involve people sinking boats, getting hurt, being stuck in the mud. Don't let that be you. You'd rather sit at a checkpoint or a boat ramp where you're comfortable than grabbing onto a rock on the edge of the Missouri River hoping for the best. So use common sense. This is 340 Paddler, hoping that you keep your paddle in the water.